Resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Well, hello, my next level friends. Welcome to the Art Next Level podcast. This is a special week. I'm super excited because on Thursday, February 8th, I will be in Mexico. I will be at the Museum of the City of Cuernavaca for my solo show that I have opening on February 8th at 6 p.m. So if you are in Mexico around the city of Cuernavaca, come and visit. It's going to be a great time. We'd love to meet some of you there as well. And also, while I'll be in Mexico, I'm going to make a trip to Mexico City where I'll be staying for a couple of days too. And on February 10th, I'm going to be having a talk in the studio of Alejandra Cermeño, a wonderful artist from Mexico City. And the title of this talk is called Construyendo Puentes, which means building bridges. And it's going to be a great talk. So if you are in Mexico City, come stop by. You have to sign up online because there are only very limited seats for the event. And you can go to www.theartistnextlevel.com/CDMX for Ciudad de Mexico. So again, theartistnextlevel.com/CDMX. So I hope to see you there this Saturday or on Thursday in Cuernavaca. And well, my friends, today I have an awesome interview to share with you with Darryll Schiff. Within a few short years following his decision to focus solely on his fine art career, Darryll Schiff became an internationally recognized artist. His work appears in the collections of many private collectors and leading museums such as the Art Institute of Chicago, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and the Norton Simon Museum in California. Darryll takes the camera well beyond his conventions. He is unique in the poetic and painterly results you see in his art. Darryll's work has been featured in international art fairs in Art Busan, South Korea, and Bazaar Art Jakarta, Indonesia. He had solo shows at Prak-sis Gallery and En Foco Gallery, and more is in the works, including Scope Miami Beach and Scope New York. Recently, Darryll unveiled his massive 24 by 56 foot mural Descending to Heaven in the famous Wabash Art Corridor here in Chicago. And I'm super excited to share my interview with Darryll Schiff. Hello, Darryll. How are you today?
Hi, Sergio. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing good, too. It's really going to be a pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been looking forward for this. Are you ready to take us to the next level?
I hope so. That's what I try to do every day.
Fabulous. That's great. Thanks, Darryll, for being here with us today. This is a cold morning day here in Chicago. It's been quite a crazy kind of a winter that we have, but it looks really nice outside, and I'm kind of looking forward to maybe sneak out for a bit, even though it's kind of cold. But I'm looking forward for this conversation to learn more about what you do, also learn about more about your story, because that's what we love in this podcast here at the Art Next Level, is to bring out the stories, because we all have a unique story. We all have a unique way in which we got to where we are at now. Mm-hmm. And what a pleasure to be also recording your story, documenting your story as an artist as well. I'm really, really looking forward to that. So.
Great.
Awesome. So, Darryll, as we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your maybe your childhood, where you grew up, and kind of lead us into how you became an artist.
Okay. I'm from Chicago, born and raised here. I grew up pretty much in Rogers Park. And I guess the fortunate thing is that my mother was an artist, is still an artist.
Okay.
And I have 3 siblings. I'm the oldest. When I was younger, my mother sent one of my sisters and myself to the Art Institute on Saturdays for classes. So I had a very early introduction to art, and we could walk around the museum and look at the pictures, and I didn't realize then, of course, what an impact it would have on me. As I grew older, I still played around a little here and there with art, but it was a pretty normal teenager, playing sports and doing all that. And still, my mother would have artist friends over to the house. You know, we would regularly, if we went on family trips and we were in a
Yeah.
city with a museum, we would go. So, you know, that was always there. When I got to college, though, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and finally started taking some like pre-architecture classes and design classes. And I thought, oh, I'll be a graphic designer. And I transferred, ended up going to IIT here, the Institute of Design, and studying graphic design. And you had to take photography. And shortly after being in the darkroom, I started falling in love with pictures and that type of picture making process.
Okay.
You know, I can.
Fabulous. So, uh, and at some point, then you also start experimenting digitally, right? 'Cause,
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the
so,
time in school, of course, it was all film.
mhm,
And, you know, I had some great teachers. I had Arthur Siegel was the head of the department, and he really became my mentor. And I had Aaron Siskine and Gary Winogrand was there, and we interact a lot. We had very differing views of art and photography. But, you know, after that, at the time, not many people could even make half a decent living selling prints. So I went into commercial photography and moved to Los
okay.
Angeles.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and I, you know, shot a number of things. I had a fair amount of celebrities like Robin Williams and
Oh,
uh,
wow.
Jada Pinkett Smith,
Cool.
Jasmine Guy, Holly Robinson Pete, you know, and a number of others. But after a while, you know, I was kind of getting tired of doing the commercial work. You know, I just had
Okay.
that background and that artistic impulse in my nature. So about probably 8, 10 years ago, I started switching over and to the point that about 4 or 5 years ago, I've really just been doing the fine art work. You know, somewhere in that the 5 to 10 year period, I started working digitally, and
Okay.
you know, it was really a pleasure. It's extremely time consuming, maybe more time consuming actually than dealing with a photo lab or dealing in a dark room. But you know, of course, I now have total control of what I'm doing.
Right. Right. Fabulous. And something that is very much part of your work is this idea of movement and motion. And I would love to hear about that. How did you arrive to that moment, or when did you begin to get interested in movement, motion, and how do you apply it in your work?
Well, you know, Sergio, that's really quite an interesting thing because there's a little twist on that. You
Oh,
know,
really? Okay, would love to
uh,
hear that.
well, you know, I pretty much, a lot of times there's an intellectual thought process behind what I'm doing in the project and why I'm doing certain pictures and certain series. Yeah, but for the most part, you know, I would get these ideas and experiment and see if I thought I could really say something kind of unique with what I'm doing. But I never thought too much exactly, you know, is it doing, you know, am I like capturing a certain moment? I knew I was doing more than that, but, you know, I hadn't thought about it. Maybe this will illustrate it a little better. I had some friends over to the studio, and we decided we'd, you know, do some video of some of my pictures, and you know, they would make comments, good or bad, about my work. Fortunately, mainly good. And one of my friends, who's also an excellent photographic artist, this fellow Stephen Blotter, started talking, and he said, "You know," and he's talking to the camera, of course. Darryl's work is about movement. And
Okay.
as soon as he said that, I said, wow, he's right. Why didn't I ever think of it in that tone? You know, and he said, you know, there's the people are moving or the lights are moving. And, you know, if you look at the corners, he's, you know, doing the composition. So you are drawn into the movement. And now, of course, I'm more aware of that, but it's
Right.
just became second nature, I guess. And I didn't give it that much conscious thought, but you know, outside of I want to make a great picture.
Wonderful. And that's what I find your work so fascinating, because it's, it's almost a reflection of the way of life of today. Talking to my parents sometimes, we talk about the differences between, you know, just 30 years ago to now, and how fast paced life is. And part of that is all the accessibility to the social media, and the interaction of people so quickly, so fast. And when I look at your work, it feels to me that it's such about who we are as people too. We're in constant motion. We can travel from one place to another, increasingly faster and faster over the years, and as technology allows us to move faster, and that's, your figures in your works, um, even as photographs, they become like almost abstract shadows of a person that was there and now has moved to another dimension, or is in transition to another place, which is something that I really find fascinating. They almost become like portals to the next dimension, like, or the time machine in a way.
Okay.
I don't know what you think about that.
Hmm. Well, actually, I am conscious of, that part of the art I'm
Hmm.
creating, that,
Hmm.
it is, a lot of it is a reflection on modern life. When I was in school, we studied all you know, the history of photography for a year and talked about current photographers, and of
Hmm.
course Henri Cartier-Bresson and his
Hmm.
decisive moment, where he
Hmm.
would freeze that split second of time,
Right.
to capture that image. And what I've thought is, in school I tried to emulate that for a while, and then of course I figured out, well, this guy's the best. I
Uh-huh.
don't think I'm going to outdo Bresson. So let me find something that's my own. And, it developed over
Right.
years and years, but, it's really, a lot of the pictures are more about moments. And like you said, the time
Hmm.
flowing. And some of them, they're extremely brightly colored. And to me, that's a reflection of our world. You may not think of that on a great Chicago winter day, but then
Hmm.
again, look at everybody staring at their phones and YouTube and, you name it. And it's, all that digital modern time, just like you were saying.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, well,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in terms of also your trajectory, you have a beautiful piece, which is a public artwork here on Wabash Avenue here in Chicago, which I've seen it many times driving by. It's beautiful. It's it's colored in scale. Tell me about the process of working with that piece, and is that the largest public work that you have done? And how did that come about? How was the process of transmitting something on a smaller scale to that size?
hmm
And also tell us how big it is.
okay. It's 24 feet high by 56 feet wide or long. And it definitely is by far the largest piece that I've done. I've always been interested in public art, but it seemed, well, that's something for the mural painters and
Right.
that kind of thing. How would I translate my work to this? And actually, my main assistant, Lauren, had gone to Columbia College, and she was aware of this Wabash Arts Corridor project
Mm-hmm.
that Mark Kelly there has got in motion. And she said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did a giant mural?" And I said, "Okay." She said, "I want to check it out. Let me see if I can get Mark to the studio." And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really take it too seriously until about 2 weeks later. He's visiting and looking at pictures. And we showed him some pieces we thought would be good murals, and he picked one of them and said, "That's it. I have a building. We want to get this up." But of course, it wasn't that simple.
Right.
I pretty much do almost all my own printing, but there it's archival paper, archival
Mm-hmm.
pigment inks, and they're meant for indoors framing,
Right.
that kind of thing. And this had to be outdoors, so we had to work with a printer who does those digital graphics,
Mm-hmm.
and had actually done some very large digital prints on this, outdoor vinyl type material that would
Mm-hmm.
last for a couple of few years. And this fellow Doug at Gamma here, and I started talking to him. And what I did do was I prepared the file for him, and we did a couple of tests to make sure the colors would be rich and the blacks would be black, which would in turn make the colors pop out more. And we worked on that, and he knew exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm chuckling a little because Sergio,
Uh-huh.
what happened is I didn't see the whole piece until the
Oh,
day they were supposed to install it on the wall.
oh, really? Okay.
And, they came out with a whole crew with a cherry picker
Uh-huh.
and, five guys on the roof of this building, and they're, nailing and drilling these anchors in the wall. And they knew exactly what they were doing. And, I'm very happy with it. It's been up, I think,
Mm-hmm.
2 years now. And it
Mm-hmm.
looks like it should be up another year or two, which I think, for this outdoor material in Chicago winters and summer is amazing.
Yeah. So I imagine you had to have a very good high quality file in order then to for that to be able to reproduce that size too, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it was shot on. Maybe someone from Nikon will be listening and hear my plug. But I have a couple of top of the line, Nikon digital cameras now, and
Hmm.
actually a couple of little pocket cameras I try to carry around with me.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a fair amount of work, and I mean, I could get really technical about it. There's a
Mm-hmm.
couple of software programs that can help a little, but you really have to have that original file right. And,
Right, right.
we did
Mm.
test prints in the studio, but they were just panels,
Mm.
maybe 6 or 8 feet high and a couple of feet wide to see if it would work. And fortunately, Doug over there knew what he was doing.
Yeah, well, it looks really beautiful, and the color seems to be, right on into the kind of work that you do. So that's good news.
Oh, thank you.
So there are something that I love to hear also in the artist stories that I talk to is we all have ups and downs in our career, right? And sometimes we learn a lot from our downs or from obstacles that we have along the way. In your long career as an artist, what has been one of your maybe biggest struggles that you had to overcome at any point in your career?
Well, I can tell you, I think probably, well, there were two big struggles. One was when I got out of school and decided to mainly work on commercial art to make a living, commercial
Mm-hmm.
photography. But, it was really trying to build up a portfolio and doing a lot of test shoots and then trying to get appointments and, anything from magazines to ad agencies. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I was in Los Angeles, to some of the actors' agents and that kind of thing. And that, I think we're always impatient and feel, we should wake up the next morning and be rich and famous. Of course, it doesn't happen like that as far as I know.
Right. That's what we all wish for, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really was a good few years where I was working
Mm-hmm.
part time in almost any other job that would leave me time to work on the photography then. The more recent struggle would be when I decided it was time to really, hopefully, ease out of commercial photography back
Mm-hmm.
into fine art. And,
Right.
I worked on things and I thought, wow, I'm really getting somewhere. And,
Mm-hmm.
I have this unusual technique and all that. And, again, thinking like, well, I should be discovered. But,
Mm-hmm.
in reality, what was happening, I was getting some, very nice prints and pictures with the techniques I were exploring. But the first few years, it was as much about the technique as the picture, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really want that to happen. So I just had to be patient and keep going and
Mm-hmm.
taking lots of pictures and lots of prints until I thought, well, okay, now this technique is second nature. It's People that are looking at the pictures and artists and friends that I trust, would
Mm-hmm.
be saying, "Oh, now you're really getting somewhere." This is, I'm not thinking about your multiple exposures anymore. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
looking at the picture and trying to take it all in and,
Mm-hmm.
grasp the meaning and the beauty of it.
Right.
So that, but again, I thought, in a year or two, I'll be right back in the mainstream of the art world. And, it was a good few years. And since then, it was a good couple of years till I
Mm.
really was starting to push. And, all the time I was going to museums and galleries and
Mm-hmm.
trying to say, okay, is my work as good as,
Mm-hmm.
this woman or this man's work on the wall of the gallery or the museum?
Mm-hmm.
And, at some point, I felt confident I could at least compete, and so I'm getting some success. I'm trying to be
Mm-hmm.
modest here.
No, that's wonderful, and I love that story. Because in a way, when I started my career, I had a similar struggle where when I finished my education, I got a job as a graphic designer. So it was
Hmm.
also a 2 year period in which I was just overworking, like 9 to 7, 9 to 6. It was advertising, so you had to stay late. So I did, by the time I got home, I was exhausted. I was wondering how am I gonna, do an art career like this. But throughout those 2 years, just keep making art, keep making in my garage, even if I didn't like what I was making, just like you said, just keep working, keep fine tuning, keep looking and pushing and pushing until I was able to get out of that situation in a much better place. And so I do feel that that story resonating with mine too in that sense. And I think you said something very important, not to stop working, but to keep growing, to keep looking, and to keep persisting, right? Keep persistence, I think, is key in what we do as artists and how we grow as artists.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and pretty much every artist I've spoken to, you go through periods, and
Mm-hmm.
you feel you're doing something really good and really important, you're confident, and then for some crazy reason, maybe a couple of days later you wake up and you look at the picture and you say, is this really that good? And uh,
Mm-hmm.
I've even done stuff, where I have my files on the computer, and
Uh-huh.
I think I'll be working on something for a number of months, and
Uh-huh.
and maybe I have a 50, 100 pictures, but I'm narrowing them down, and maybe going back to reshoot because I think I
Mm-hmm.
missed something. Um, but I have, fortunately, my girlfriend not only is a good critic, but she knows something about art,
Uh-huh.
as her father was an artist. But she, once in a while, she'll sit down at the computer and she'll say, "D," which is what she calls me.
Okay.
Why didn't you print this picture? It's great. I mean, it's wonderful to hear that, but
Right.
um, it was usually one of those pictures where I thought, wow, do I have something here or not? And I had those doubts, even at my age, and
Mm-hmm.
and all that. But yeah, like you said, you just got to keep on doing, and pretty much, I mean, not pretty much, but really believe in yourself and know you'll work
Mm-hmm.
through whatever the the little peaks and valleys are.
Exactly. That is wonderful. That's a wonderful advice, Daryl. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now, in the other opposite, we all have those moments in which things are low, but we also have heights in our career. What's some of the more uh, memories that you have of your career, more pleasurable heights in your art career so far?
Mm. Um, well, in the art career, I mean, I would just tell you real quickly, commercial art. When I was doing commercial photography,
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I mean, years ago, really, I had been, like I described before, talking about going around with my portfolio and trying to make appointments. And somehow
Yeah.
I got into the art director, got to meet with him for San Francisco Magazine. And,
Okay.
of course, then for all you very, very much youngsters, magazines were the thing at the time.
Right.
And
Before Google.
right. And, and he gave me an assignment to do
Uh-huh.
the cover of the magazine. And I thought,
Really
oh,
cool.
my God, I'm in heaven.
Really
My
cool.
first magazine cover that I shot. But with the fine art, there were a couple of things. When I was in school, the school every so often would put out a portfolio of work of,
Hmm.
you know, presumably the best artists of the class. I'm trying to
Hmm.
say that and be a little modest. Uh, and I was in the portfolio, and not only that, but my print was chosen, and
Hmm.
is now in the collection of the Art Institute here. So I
Wonderful.
thought, oh my
Amazing.
God, I'm in the museum. What could be better? That certainly
Right.
was a highlight. And a couple of others quickly. I mean, the mural that went up a couple of years ago,
Hmm.
and to see it up there and see the reaction was just great. And also, that was such a proud moment for me because it really was, the first real major public art piece that I had
Hmm.
done. And, I just love that fact that it's out there in the public. And, like, for example, the piece that's in the Art Institute,
Hmm.
it's, every once in a while it's out in a special show, but for the most
Hmm.
part, like overwhelmingly the collection at any museum,
Hmm.
there's, thousands of pieces you don't see that aren't hung, but they're there in the
Right.
collection. But to have this out in the public and hopefully, you know, inspire someone or brighten up their day or get them to think about
Exactly.
art, that's just wonderful.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And congratulations on all those achievements. That's pretty good.
Well, thank you.
Especially every time that I'm sure that you drive through Wabash Avenue and you see the mural there.
Right, right.
That's great. That's wonderful. Now, there are also, in this podcast we have artists at all levels, right? We have artists who listen to it from emerging to mid-career to established artists, and I always like to ask my guests to if you have a word of advice for maybe an artist who is listening right now, but maybe struggling with their career in some way, because we all struggle at different times in our life, with no matter where we are, what level we're in. What could you say to an artist who may be right now struggling to find his or her voice at this moment?
Mhm. Well, most of it would be, what we were discussing.
Hmm.
It's just that, don't get too much of an ego, and think you're the greatest. Just work hard and work hard and show your work to people, and you'll will progress. I'm sure most of us are pretty bright, and you'll learn and look at a picture and I would say think, wow, that's really good, but I think what I'm doing
Hmm.
now is better. But be serious about it and
Hmm.
don't give up. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's very difficult to get to a point where you're making a decent living as an artist. So,
Hmm.
that can really, you know, drag you down, so to speak. But, if you love the art and you think you have the talent, just believe in yourself and keep going. You'll find a way to do it and be a success.
Hmm. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cyril, for that advice. Very timely, as of course. And before we close, Daryl, and this has been such a wonderful conversation, getting to know you a little bit better as well. Tell us what's happening in your studio right now. If we were sitting right next to you, what are you working on, and maybe what's coming down the line for you.
Okay. Well, first, Sergio, I have to compliment you because, I know even though we haven't really met until
Hmm.
today, and it's digitally,
Right,
I
right.
know we've seen each other's work for,
Hmm.
I'm sure, a good few years. And,
Right.
of course, now I see more of yours on Instagram, but
Yeah.
I do have to compliment you because I think, you're I mean, you're really good and you're really progressing. I can see it from, with a vague recollection now, the first pieces I probably saw on
Hmm.
Facebook or someplace. But, and I've seen like what you're posting about your shows and everything. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I have to say, wow, Um, so
Thank you
like
so
I
much,
said,
Daryl. That
don't get a big ego.
I know, I
Keep
know, I know.
working hard.
I will forget everything you just said. No,
Okay.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Sure. What I'm working now is, it's interesting. I have what I try to do is have 2, 3 projects going on
Hmm.
because with all the stuff you do on the computer now, it's so easy to get caught up in that, and
Right.
at even to the point of sometimes you can overdo all the stuff all the access you have with the tools in Photoshop. So what
Hmm.
I try to do is not get just work on one thing all the time. I may work for
Hmm.
a week or two on a couple of pictures in a series and then move to the next one. But, and even though some of them are right now, there's one that's very brightly colored and the other one is more, it's not quite monochromatic, but it's certainly more
Hmm.
black and white. But, if you look at the work, you'll see that I do have those silhouettes which represent,
Yeah.
us and the people in the society. So
Hmm.
you can see that there's the connection. But the main series is called Confluence,
Okay.
and in a way, it's about how busy the world is again, and
Yeah.
but somehow we all manage to move along together for the most part and
Hmm.
keep things going.
That's right. We keep moving. So, Daryl, how do you know when a series is finished? Do you go by a specific number of works, or is it just kind of an intuitive choice, or how do you decide? Well, this series is now done. I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Yeah, well,
Just curious.
it's a combination of of all those things. Really,
Hmm.
it's well, for one thing, there's a series I shot a few years ago in New York,
Hmm.
and it happened to be my daughter modeled for me. Uh,
Okay.
and I won't get into describing the whole thing. They're brightly colored pictures.
Hmm.
Um, it would take an hour to go through that, but we were in New York, and it really was. We were at a certain location where the lights were perfect for the series. So,
Okay.
once we left New York and got back to Chicago, I just, hoped that I had enough pictures to make a little series, which I did.
Okay. Hmm.
Um, Now, this Confluence series that I'm working on, has it's been going on over a period of a couple of years, and
Hmm.
I think I have enough now. I feel confident in it, so I don't want to overplay what I'm doing. I guess it's mainly a feeling that I have enough
Yeah.
pictures, and it's right.
Wonderful. That's amazing. It's wonderful. And Daryl, for our friends who would like to, after this podcast, go and visit your website or go find you online or your social media, can you tell us your web address and also where they can find you on social media?
Sure, it's of course it's www.schiff-art.com. That's SCHIFF dash or hyphen
Hmm.
ART.com. That's the website. There is a Darryll Schiff Fine Art Facebook page,
Hmm.
and the same on Instagram. Of course, if you Google me, uh,
Hmm.
you'll find all those things. And I believe we have a Wikipedia page and a couple
Wonderful.
of other things. And
Fantastic. And if you are ever in Chicago, make sure you drive by 710 South Wabash Avenue, where you can see one of Daryl's works right there in large scale at 24 by 56 feet mural. So that would be fabulous for our friends to come and check out if they're ever here in the city of Chicago. And for us here in Chicago to enjoy as we drive by Wabash Avenue. That's fantastic.
great.
So Daryl, I want to thank you again for your time. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I look forward to stopping by and visiting your studio one of these days in person. That would be really nice, and we can have maybe a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be awesome. Thanks, Daryl. Thank you for this time, and I want to thank all our friends for checking out this podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please share it with your friends. That would be awesome as well. Thank you, and I will see you at the next level.
Thank you very much, Sergio. This really, really was a pleasure.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.